This is a story about how a well-known populist brand changed its communications model from being on transmit to being about inviting people in and letting them participate with the brand.
What they've done is they've beautifully leveraged all the new social channels that are available to us to invite their consumer in to play, and they invited them in to share their opinions, to share their thoughts, do us a flavour and things. And that's why I think it's a great paper for us to learn about how you can take your brands onto social platforms, reach out and touch consumers and get them to come and connect to you.
Well, Gary Lineker made his first advert for Walkers in 1995, so it's actually been going 18 years now. In 2008, we'd got into a fairly familiar routine. We made 30-second ads featuring Gary Lineker doing something in order to get his hands on the crisps. So we had, if I'm honest, fallen into a fairly routine pattern of how to do crisp advertising. We did some research in 2008 looking at what people thought of the brand, and what they said to us was, you just become a bit familiar. You're a bit like a long-term marriage partner, familiar, still well-liked, well-loved even, but a bit familiar, maybe even a bit stale. And we felt the need to do something that was going to enliven consumers' relationships with the brand again.
One of the things that did really interest us was a piece of work by the Harvard Business School that basically made the point that if you can drive buzz and word of mouth around your brand, that has a directly positive relationship with sales. So that became a really interesting thing for us to pursue.
And when we looked at that measure for Walkers, we found that only 7% of people thought that the brand had a buzz around it. So we thought, well, that's really low.
And we set ourselves the challenge of generating more buzz and word of mouth around Walkers. I think it's fair to say that participation, even at the time in 2008, was already something which lots of brands were talking about. What we needed to do, though, for a brand that was consumed by 10 million people every day, was to really do participation on a mass scale rather than any niche community or group of people. We wanted to talk to the masses.
And we were searching for an idea, I suppose, that could give people an excuse to come and talk to us rather than just listen to what we had to say. We received a fairly traditional brief from the client in 2008, which was, we'd like to tell people about some new flavours that we're developing. And we just wondered if there was an opportunity to do something a bit different. So we organised a brainstorm, and we got somebody from the PR agency, so Matthew Freud. We got Debbie Simmons, who was running the promotional agency. We got the main client at the time, and we had Paul Wayland, the director. And we got everyone together, and that was the moment where the idea came about, because somebody said in that room, everybody seems to have an opinion about what would make a good crisp flavour, and I think it may have been Matthew Freud. And that sparked the idea, where we thought to ourselves, well, if everybody has got an opinion about a flavour, why don't we ask them? And why don't we share with the population all the ideas and the suggestions that people have for what would make a great crisp flavour?
Do As a Flavour was the first sort of big campaign that we did and adopted this new approach. So it was really important that we came out really strong and kind of stated our intent that things were different. So we had, TV was really important, and it always had been, and it was important to use it again to really kind of create that impact and that level of fame that we needed to signal that we were doing things differently.
And there were going to be 3 phases. Firstly, we were going to invite the nation to suggest their flavours. We would then have a panel of experts who would shortlist it down to 6. Then we would make those 6 flavours, and we would get people to try them and vote for the one that they thought should be the winner. So it was a complicated programme to execute.
So we launched the campaign with a TV spot announcing this new brilliant idea that we had, and the fact that we wanted to get people involved with it.
Walkers are looking for their next great flavour. Visit walkers.co.uk and you could win a packet.
Our strategy very much became about having a big launch, which we were used to, but then actually finding different channels and using them in a way to kind of to build that excitement and that participation and fuel it over a really long period of time. So again, we had a big round of people submitting their flavours, but then we had to come back to people and say, we're still here, please vote. That's where digital became much more important for us than it had been previously. The first stage, which was just people submitting what they would like to see as a Walker's flavour, smashed all our expectations. It had 1.2 million people suggesting what their flavours would be, which kind of blew us away a little bit.
That Walkers had flavour credentials, but it didn't necessarily own them in popular culture. People knew that Walker's crisps produced lots of different flavours, but not imaginative ones. And so we borrowed some of the equity from Heston Blumenthal, who is obviously the sort of quintessential figure, not about necessarily being a chef, but about being a flavour creator. And so we borrowed some of his equity by involving him in the campaign and getting him to be one of the judges on the judging panel.
It was a massive challenge for R&D and production. They said they needed 9 months to develop one flavour, and we told them they were going to have 3 months to develop 6. And not only that, the trade themselves had never stocked more than 2 or 3 new flavours of Walkers up to this point, and we were going to ask them to take 6, in addition to all the other flavours they currently had. So there was a lot of people and a lot of effort involved in really making this happen.
We actually produced sort of 6 separate ads for each of the 6 different flavours, where each of the flavours was sort of campaign for its own vote, like a political party might.
TV is where we spend the bulk of our media money, and we choose TV because of the reach. Because we want to talk to the great crisp-eating British public, which is everybody in the country, TV is the natural starting point. I think we figured out quite interesting ways of having that work together with social media, but it's the hub, probably the hub against which everything else revolves. It's 75% of the money we spend, and with such a high and proven ROI, we can afford to then experiment and be on the cutting edge of other stuff where we don't expect such a high ROI, but we can capture learnings and help keep the execution fresh.
Do As a Flavour ended up a campaign that went on for something like 9 months, which at the beginning, when we first sort of looked at the laydown, I sort of said, well, I really don't think you can keep editorial interest in a campaign for that long. It's going to be incredibly difficult. But it was a testament to how good the idea was that it withstood that whole process.
We were amazed by the results of Do Us a Flavour. We got nearly 1.5 million people suggesting flavours. We got nearly 1.5 million people, not the same people, voting for the flavour that they thought was the best. And we got a lot of PR coverage on TV, in press, for the idea. It genuinely did the thing that we set out to do, which was generate a degree of buzz around the brand for the first time.
So phase 2 for us was a different brief, and this brief was about trying to increase the consumption of crisps at lunchtime. Our idea was to tie crisps to sandwiches, and we worked the campaign around a very simple proposition that Walkers can make any sandwich more exciting. The magic came through the creative leap, and that was actually to go to the town of Sandwich and for Walkers to make the town of Sandwich more exciting. So through a series of sort of celebrity-led events, over 3 days in the sleepy town of Sandwich in Kent, we made it the most exciting town in Britain.
We believe that Walkers can make any sandwich that little bit more exciting, even this one.
As you might have guessed, this isn't a normal assembly. JLS!
Hearing sixth form girls scream at the top of their voice at the JLS concert is a memory that will stay with me for quite some time. We had Pamela Anderson in a bar, we had Al Murray telling jokes, and we had Jensen Button driving a local cab around. Gary Lineker and Frank Lampard play football with the local boys from the local school. So we just created different trigger points throughout the day of unusual things that were happening in Sandwich. The more interesting content was all the short films that we put online about the things that were happening in Sandwich that day.
Hello, guys. Hello. Oh, no, you beat me to it. I saw this in the window and I thought...
Yeah, take a seat, mate. Do you have any driving experience?
A little bit, yeah.
Any outstanding speeding fines?
No, they don't normally catch me.
We weren't asking consumers to vote or sort of choose their flavours in any way. It was more what we were asking for them to do was actually share the content.
What we quickly saw, actually, was through social media, through social networks, people were able to spread the news. Even if they weren't in the town of Sandwich, were able to experience a pretty close hand what was going on.
Oh, no, you can't have bread. Why is it cheese? Sausage roll? I'm I'm taking my break, is that okay?
So there was a real feeling of this was happening live, and as you know, the PR guys were doing a really good job in the press, that was then being reflected in what the content was seen online.
Frank Lampard, he's playing an international football match last night. What's he doing here? Fantastic.
Think we're getting the squad?
Frank would.
That's the best thing that's ever happened in Sandwich.
And to be honest with you, we sort of treated it as we would do when we work on our film business. When something is being shot, you know, you do a whole load of unit publicity, you invite journalists down on set, they get exclusive access and interviews with the talent, they capture particular moments, and that was incredibly important across the whole week, that you split enough of that up to get the cacophony of noise that you got once the campaign actually kicked in.
So from the campaign, we got 1.7 million complete views of the 24 pieces of content that we put out there. We were also the #1 sponsored channel on YouTube for that month. So that tells us that lots and lots of people did want to get involved. Beyond all the commercial success that Walker saw from Sandwich, and beyond all the participation results as well that we got, we were really gratified that this campaign went on to win lots of creative and effectiveness awards as well. In particular, we won the inaugural Creative Effectiveness Award at Cannes, which was really great.
I think as a brand, you can convey that you've sort of done things through advertising. There are very few brands who actually make something huge happen and use the advertising to tell the story. So if you look at Sandwich was the takeover of an entire town. The brand idea was uniting Britain with a smile, and the specific message was, we make any sandwich better. And we made life in Sandwich better in all sorts of small but beautiful ways that people loved.
And I think the client at the time said, this is the most amazing thing I've ever done, because they could see people's genuine emotions and reactions to what was going on.
Best thing in my life ever.
Quiet little sandwich and then JLS.
To coincide with the 2010 World Cup, we ran a campaign called the Flavour Cup. And we made 15 new flavours that corresponded with different countries playing in the World Cup.
Welcome to the Walker's Flavour Cup Draw, the competition to find the world's best crisp flavour. May the best flavour win! Support your favourite flavour and win a packet at walkers.co.uk.
And again, with this campaign, we wanted to involve people, so we asked them to support their favourite flavour through the World Cup of Crisps. And 600,000 people voted for their favourite flavours throughout the campaign.
For us, the most useful lesson we've learned about TV is the role of TV as a signpost to point people in the direction of doing something, of taking part. And of course, the TV has to be entertaining and enjoyable, but using it as a direction to something else has really changed the way that we plan our media now.
That was phase 3. We moved then on to phase 4, which was the Walker's Rainy Day campaign.
Well, Rainy Day came about because we wanted a promotional idea, but we wanted one that could still remind people something about the fact that Walker's crisps are made of British potatoes. And we'd uncovered this fact that the reason potatoes grow so well in Britain is because it rains so much. And the thing that we knew about the rain was, whilst potatoes love the rain, consumers hate the rain because it stops them doing things. So we thought, could we turn that on its head and give people a reason to love the rain? And could we run a competition where if people guess where it's going to rain at a certain time on a certain day, we'll reward them with £10. And in actual fact, more people bet on our Rainy Days promotion than they bet on the Grand National that year.
With Walkers, you can win a tenner every day it rains.
Well, we'd learnt by this time that TV coupled with digital were our two most important levers. TV to drive people online to do something, and that's the two that we really used heavily on this promotion.
Our British potatoes love the rain, now you can too. Choose where in the country it'll rain next, and every time you're right, you win a tenner. Win when it rains at walkers.co.uk.
We were very present on pages that we knew were being viewed in a certain part of the country, and that we knew that part of the country was likely to have a high level of rainfall. So again, incredibly relevant advertising, making it seem to people that they could win and they'd want to take part.
We wanted to create buzz, as you know, around the brand, But we didn't expect the kind of buzz around rainy days that then happened, because what happened was various experts decided that they would try and beat the odds that we'd predicted, and they were all offering consumers tips on how to win and how to beat the system, which was something that we'd never expected for the campaign.
Phase 5 kicked off in February 2011, and it coincided with Red Nose Day, and it was called the Clash of the Comics. We produced 4 new flavours, but these were special flavours with special champions because they were famous British comedians. And they were literally sort of pitched in battle against one another to try and convince the British public that their flavour deserved to win.
So we effectively sat down with 4 comedians, said to them, one of you will win, and the other 3 are going to receive full body wax on national television.
So we picked our point, and again, we went really big with a TV campaign and used long second lengths, high reach programming, and built our 1+ coverage as rapidly as we could.
Fantastic. It's good to help the needy, isn't it, Gary? Anything to help Frank Skinner get back on telly.
Oh, and Jimmy can't come off, you're having a laugh and jump.
And then there was a period where, we couldn't afford to, and we didn't want to be on air with that higher weight, but how could we still keep people interested? And that's when we had content, bits of content from the comedians, which we could use to kind of seed out and keep people engaged in the campaign. So again, we knew that 10 days out from comic relief itself is when everything reaches a crescendo. So we came back with longer time lengths and tried to create a real sense of urgency that, you only had 10 days left to vote for your favourite crisp, and then, the loser was going to get a full body wax.
Thank you for raising over £1 million for Red Nose Day and for making my crisps the gallant winner of Walker's Clash of the Comics. Now let's hear a few words from the losers.
Oh! That's not even the painful part. Ready?
Do it! Oh, Denise Van Houten!
Oh, it's a pork scratching.
Phase 6 was called What's That Flavour? The idea here was to create 3 new flavours, but not to tell the British public what they were. We would invite them to guess the flavours of the 3 mystery bags.
And that actually it was incredibly hard when you think about it, if you're given a plain bag of crisps, to understand exactly what the flavour tones were there.
What flavour's that?
There's a hint of chili and lime.
Sweet Mason was really topical at the time, really famous on YouTube for mixing up videos and music. And we went to him. We had a song which we liked, which is called What's That Flavour by Craig David.
This time we knew and we were confident that we could actually create that debate, and we knew that we didn't have to create too many gimmicks, that give people the right tools, and actually they're quite happy to talk and debate about the flavours.
What's that flavour?
Tell me what's that flavour.
Cheese and onion.
A good example actually of What's That Flavour is we have proprietary technology that lets you experience different flavours at different stages, so a kind of curve of the flavour. And so when we did one which is Birmingham Balti flavour, you can pick out coriander, you can pick out curry, you can pick out garlic in that flavour in different stages. Taking something that was maybe 50 years ago, a plain salted crisp, to a really, really interesting flavour experience is what gets more people to engage with it.
Spicy meatballs. But they're not balls, are they? They're crisps.
Nice. Ah, of course.
Eat a bit of whey.
And parsnips. Ama tanımadığım bir şey. Belki kişniş.
That'll be interesting.
Walker's Mystery Flavours. Throw your guess in the mix for a chance to win £50,000.
I've got it. It's...
The flavours were released into the market, and then all we had to do was get as many people as possible talking and guessing about what the flavours were. So it was quite a simple mechanic. The social proof element was really critical because we had not much else to really talk to people about over that campaign period. We had a number of celebrities who were guessing on our behalf, so as they were, Joey Essex was making his guess, we were using paid-for media to take that guess and amplify it among as wide a group of people as we possibly could.
I remember on What's That Flavour, I was told that actually what those 3 flavours were, and I was only one of the, a handful of people who were legally allowed to know what they were, and then I forgot what they were.
In media relationships, it's easier to build on success in some ways, and then in other ways it's much harder. It's easier because I think media believe that successful things need to be written about. Media, want to reflect what people are talking about. So from that perspective, it becomes easier because Walkers has a sort of right to editorial and earned media. It's sort of earned that right with the campaigns that it's done. Having said that, you still need to keep producing greatest hits, and you still need to keep delivering on a creative idea, but expressed, it's a very similar idea. It's all about flavour, but it's expressed in a very different way, and it's still got to capture people's imagination.
One of the things we're most interested in as a benchmark of success was how much buzz was around the brand. We actually increased buzz by 8 percentage points from Do Us a Flavour through the 6 phases.
And it was really important when we looked at the results. That gave us a real sense of, we were doing something right, because on average, 173 mentions of Walkers every single day. Overwhelmingly, it's 71% of all those were positive. So we were sure that not only were we sure within a digital space because it was tracked, but actually it was having a real effect in the real world.
So since 2008, the ROI on the Walkers brand has increased by 62%. So we really have managed to create the mass engagement and the buzz around this brand that we set out to achieve.
I think probably these campaigns worked in slightly different ways, but mostly around frequency of engagement with the category, driving traffic to the shelf. And I think that's what our customers wanted to see out of Walkers, kind of captaining the category to healthy growth over time.
I think the equivalent media value is tens of millions, certainly over kind of £20 million worth of PR coverage. To have 6 hits follow each other, one after the other, over a period of time, that your real KPI in terms of success criteria is being hit.
For me, it's a lesson on how not to rest on your laurels, how even when something looks like it's working and it's doing a good job, how you almost have to smash that up and reinvent it in order to do something that's great.
We set out in 2008 to really embrace participation. And what's interesting is that actually each of our 6 different participation schemes worked in different ways. We feel we're at a point now where we have turned Walkers into a fully fledged participation brand.
They recognise that everyone's in the market for crisps at all times. And so they activated very broadly. The TV campaign isn't there telling people anything, it's there asking them to do something and getting them involved. They have used TV here to invite people and on a mass scale.
The power of what Walkers tried to do was about levelling out the agency playing field and enshrining 2 things at the heart of everything it wanted to achieve. One was that everything must be driven by a brilliant insight that was true of Walkers, and the other piece that every single idea needed to be a great idea in and of itself.
So there's probably 3 pieces of advice to the long line of people who will probably come after me. Stay strategically consistent. Make sure you're executionally fresh. And the last one is don't forget that you're talking to everybody.
And I think, we've been careful to choose our communications model to make sure that we kind of really show that and talk to as broad a group of people as we possibly can. And we're very confident in what we know that works, but we're very intrigued as to how we can find new and different ways to deliver on that.
The thing that I'm proudest of is this idea that we are always going to do never-been-done-before activities, and everything that we do going forwards has to have an element of new, first, can we actually do it element to it. Otherwise, none of us feel like we've done due diligence to this brand.